Okay, today we just reviewed our virtue for the month of March as respect. We need to remember to treat one another with respect, and if somebody forgets or are unintentionally being disrespectful, we need to give those gentle reminders. We've talked in the past about how to point out to people when they've done something that wasn't respectful, that wasn't kind, how to point those out gently, kindly. We need to remember that because we are all human. We do make mistakes. We need to remember to try to hold ourselves accountable and hold our classmates accountable. Say, hey, that wasn't respectful. Please stop doing that. I don't appreciate when you say that because sometimes people think they're being funny and they're not. Sometimes people are joking around one way with some friends, and then they turn around and they try to joke that same way with somebody else and they don't appreciate it. We need to always remember to treat people like Jesus. If Jesus was standing right there, is that what we would say to him? Remember that respect. So we are starting our next chapter in religion. We are continuing with the Bible. So those of us at home, I do have it on the Google Classroom page. If you don't have a Bible with you, I have what we are reading today on there. So you should be able to follow along. We do have some key words for chapter D. We are going to be learning about the monarchy, or talking about the monarchy, which is a political system in which supreme power or sovereignty is held by a single person. So here in the United States, we are not a monarchy. We don't have a king or a queen that rule us. We have the president, but he is not the sole leader. Because remember, we have the three branches of government. The executive, that the president is the head of, but also the judicial and the legislative, and they all work together to rule our country. So the monarchy is when it's just the king or queen. To anoint is to dedicate to the service of God. To mourn is to feel or express sorrow or grief. And wisdom, knowing how to live out what is true, right, and just. We're going to see how those factor into our chapter. So we are going to be learning about some of these kings that we have. So our first chapter is in 1 Samuel chapter 8. So 1 Samuel chapter 8. All right, so in the class Bibles that we have, that is page 325. We're going to be reading about the establishment of the monarchy, a request for a king. Who is the king of the Israelites? God, right? So the Israelites at this time period didn't have a human king. They didn't have an earthly king. God was their king. So they have a request for a king. In his old age, Samuel appointed his sons judges over Israel. His firstborn was named Joel. His second, Abijah. They judged at Beersheba. His sons did not follow his example, but looked to their own gain, accepting bribes and perverting justice. So they weren't being just. They weren't good judges. They wanted to make themselves richer, and they didn't care if it was the right thing to do. They just did whatever they could do to get money. Therefore, all the elders of Israel assembled and went to Samuel at Ramah and said to him, "Now that you are old and your sons do not follow your example, appoint a king over us like all the nations to rule us." Samuel was displeased when they said, "Give us a king to rule us," but he prayed to the Lord. The Lord said, "Listen to whatever the people say. You are not the one they are rejecting. They are rejecting me as their king." So they're rejecting God because God is the king. "They are acting towards you just as they have acted from the day I brought them up from Egypt to this very day, deserting me to serve other gods. Now listen to them, but at the same time, Give them a solemn warning and inform them of the rights of the king who will rule them. So God is saying, yep, they're just rejecting me again. Now they want a human king because they don't think that I am a good enough king for them. No, we're reading the whole chapter 8. The governance of the king. Samuel delivered the message of the Lord in full to those who were asking him for a king. He told them, the governance of the king who will rule you will be as follows. He will take your sons and assign them to his chariots and horses, and they will run before his chariot. He will appoint from among them his commanders of thousands and of hundreds. He will make them do his plowing and harvesting, and produce his weapons of war and chariotry. He will use your daughters as perfumers, cooks, and bakers. He will take your best fields, vineyards, and olive groves and give them to his servants. He will tithe your crops and grape harvests to give to his officials and his servants. He will take your male and female slaves, as well as your best oxen and donkeys, and use them to do his work. He will also tithe your flocks. As for you, you will become his slaves. On that day you will cry out because of the king whom you have chosen, but the Lord will not answer you on that day. Humans they sin, right? We have problems. We are not perfect. So if we have a human king, they're going to have problems. Look at what happened with the sons that were the judges. They were taking bribes. They were looking out only for themselves. So Samuel's warning them, okay, you want a human king, just like all the other nations have human kings, but there's going to be problems that come along with it. You're going to see the problems that come with having a human ruler. Persistent demand. The people, however, refused to listen to Samuel's warning and said, no, there must be a king over us. We too must be like all the nations, with a king to rule us, lead us in warfare, and fight our battles. Samuel listened to all the concerns of the people and then repeated them to the Lord. The Lord said, listen to them, appoint a king to rule over them. Then Samuel said to the people of Israel, return each one of you to your own city. So we're going to give you that human king, but then you will see that there are problems that come with having a human king. So we're going to answer this first section, the people ask for a king, and you're going to circle the answers that correctly complete each sentence. So those of you at home, we hope you are well, and we hope to see you soon. And have a good day.